BMW CEO says it's completely reckless what's going on right now. He says that focusing on electric cars is leaving Europe open to blackmail from China. Oliver Zips has a history of making some pretty wild and sensational claims. Here's his latest. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans, you're watching the Electric Viking. Only internal combustion engines or hydrogen fuel cells allow Germany and Europe to produce cars almost self-sufficiently, as battery-driven vehicles are heavily dependent on international supply chains, in other words, on China, according to BMW. Benjamin Wehrman from The Driven has reported that in an interview with business newspaper Handelsblatt, the company's CEO, Oliver Zips, said that Europe is leaving itself open to blackmail, basically from China, which is what he was alluding to, from resource suppliers by betting on electric mobility alone. Interesting comments here. That's why I believe a political decision to end combustion engines is reckless, he said, lamenting an exit decision without a simultaneous entry strategy for alternative engines. The production of e-cars can only be scaled up if it has access to raw materials and those are secured. And that's where Europe has a structural problem, said Zips, arguing that low acceptance of new domestic mining projects in the region makes developing a more autonomous industry even more difficult. Now, every time I hear comments like this, I kind of feel like it's that concept of 6 degrees of separation. If you have someone close to you that you know about that has cancer or one of the things caused by the emissions from diesel and petrol engines, the particulates, now we know that the World Health Organization has categorically said that is a fact, that millions of people are getting cancer directly as a result of pollution from these cars. But if you have enough separation between you and anyone who has those illnesses, you just don't care about this stuff. You just think, well, it doesn't affect me, so there's no real empathy, there's no real emotional feeling. But if you, like I do, have someone that is dealing with that, you tend to view these things a little differently. But anyway, let me know what you think. Tighter CO2 emissions regulations for the fuel industry could make the car sector more climate friendly with combustion engines, said BMW CEO. China's electric car industry demonstrates that an integrated strategy supported by the government, what it can do to develop actual competitiveness. And really, this is what it all comes down to. The fear in Germany right now is palpable. There is mainstream media headlines. What happens if we lose our automotive industry? What would we do? What happens to our economy? Germany is absolutely in panic mode because you've got to recognize America does rely on manufacturing of cars for its industry, but Germany does even more so. Imagine how bad it will be for Japan because they're even more reliant on their automotive industry than either Germany or the United States. This actually used to be a strength of Germany's, said Oliver Zips, adding that it's astonishing that Germany, in interaction with the EU, is increasingly taking a different approach. Now, what does he mean by taking a different approach? Well, he's basically just referring to the fact that Chinese EV manufacturers are about to send all their cars to Europe, and Stellantis, BMW, and many automotive manufacturers, Renault, are very concerned that this could kill their automotive industry. They're concerned that there should be protectionism like there is in the United States. The production of combustion engines can largely be carried out with materials already available at scale in Europe. But fossil fuels needed to propel conventional combustion engines are overwhelmingly imported from suppliers outside of the EU, including countries such as Russia, Saudi Arabia, or Nigeria. Now, the key point here is really for BMW, almost all their factories, except really one, produce internal combustion. BMW just hasn't put itself in position to make a lot of electric cars. Now, you've probably seen BMW's latest sales figures for their EVs and you're thinking, wow, BMW's EV sales have gone up by 90% a year in 12 months. It's a really great number. But the thing is, are they actually BMWs? The media says they are. Does that mean they really are? Well, actually, no. A large percentage of them are made by basically Chinese car companies in China, by contract manufacturers, you could call it. Now, technically, they are joint ventures with BMW. But if you walked into one of these factories, if you saw the branding, if you saw everything, you'd realize that actually it's a contract manufacturer. So BMW in Europe is just not prepared. It's simply not in a position to make a lot of electric cars. Therefore, it's worried. These are the kind of comments you make when you're worried, when you've got to invest tens of billions of dollars and play catch up. And you think, what happens if, in the meantime, we lose out? According to the Federal Institute of Geosciences and Natural Resources, about 98% of Germany's primary mineral oil consumption had to be imported in 2021. Now, the Driven reported that information. Very interesting here and a very astute point. 98% of Germany's oil consumption was imported in 2021. Now, this is insane. Clearly, BMW CEO has no idea on these numbers. He's probably never heard them before. And if he has heard them, they didn't enter his thick skull. Because think about it this way. If every single car in Germany right now was electric, and all the power that Germany creates came from the sun, the wind, and from other sources of renewable energy, which it will eventually because they've hit more than 50% now already, then that would mean it would be a net energy exporter potentially, not a net importer. And it's very much a net importer. Think about it. 98% of its oil comes from overseas. This would add a huge amount to Germany's balance sheet, making their own energy, which would power their own cars. And this would actually be a net economic benefit. Now, the fact that these automakers have obviously ignored Tesla's success for a long time until they started to feel the pressure recently, I don't think it has a lot to do with policy in Europe. I think it's got more to do with the success of EV sales. They've grown year over year. They're up 70% this year. Therefore, BMW clearly feels some pressure. Now, there's still a long way to go before the rules in Europe come into play, 2035. That's a long time. That's 12 years away. BMW, if they're worried they can't put themselves in position to make EVs in 12 years' time, then you've got to say, that's a strange position to be in. That's a strange mindset from the CEO of one of the world's biggest automakers. The EU and the German government have both taken steps to increase access to raw materials needed for electromobility, says The Driven, including deals with new suppliers, possible stockpiling managed by the state, and vastly improved recycling mechanisms to recover valuable materials used in industrial products. So, basically, there's a bit of rebuttal going on here from what Oliver Zip said, and I'm not really convinced these are the comments of someone who's entirely sane. You've got to remember, this is the same company that within the last few months said the future of the automotive industry is hydrogen. Most of BMW's executives have been heard saying non-publicly that they think that at some point in time it will pivot away from EVs and move back to hydrogen, or not back to, but will move to hydrogen, and that will become the future of the automotive industry. And that's why BMW continues to invest into hydrogen-powered vehicles. Now, I think that ship has well and truly sailed. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.